It's pretty easy to see why S. Morgenstern's story, The Princess Bride, has become such a widely beloved story, both in its book and its movie incarnations. Based on actual events from Florinese history, this classic tale of true love and high adventure seems to have everything. Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge.
Giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles.
Yes, thank you, Peter Falk.
Your vote of confidence is overwhelming.
William Goldman, who abridged the story and also wrote the screenplay for the cult classic movie of the same name, continues to maintain that this is his all-time favorite story. The real question is, can he do justice to the witty and satirical writings of S. Morgenstern? Well, let's find out. This is Books vs.
Hold it, Matt.
What?
You're not serious, right? You're just making one of your funny jokes.
What do you mean?
You realize that S. Morgenstern isn't real, right?
What?
William Goldman wrote The Princess Bride, Matt. S. Morgenstern is fictional, and the country of Florin doesn't exist either.
How can you say that, Hatter? Of course S. Morgenstern... Why would Goldman write it if it wasn't real?
Well, gee, Matt, I don't know. If only we could do some sort of review where we look at both incarnations of the story and try to divine what sort of messages and themes there might be within the various methods of storytelling.
You want to mock me or you want to talk about the movie?
Any reason why I can't do both? Seriously though, the 1987 film, directed by Rob Reiner, starring Cary Elwes, Mandy Patinkin, and Robin Wright, and written by, as my literary counterpart already said, William Goldman, author of the original book,
Abridger,
whatever. The film has definitely left an impression, and its fans are still fervent admirers of the story. Watching the film with a group of Princess Bride fans inevitably means having the entire movie quoted as it's playing. Both book and movie are much beloved examples of their genre, so it seems only fitting that on this, our 10th Books vs. Movies review, we should take a look at The Princess Bride. Because of sheer amount of stuff going on in this story, our usual 5 categories have been temporarily expanded to 7. So, let's not waste any more time, but take a look at our 4 main protagonists: Wesley, Buttercup, Fezzik, and Inigo.
We decided to put these 4 in the same category because the story really is about all of them and how they came together. Wesley and Buttercup are, of course, our romantic couple, meeting and falling in love, admittedly kind of sporadically, on Buttercup's parents' farm where Wesley works as a farmhand. The story is about their romance and everything they did to stay together after Wesley was kidnapped by pirates and presumed dead, and Buttercup was betrothed to Prince Humperdinck, heir to the Florin throne. Inigo and Fezzik start off as 2 hired thugs for the criminal mastermind Vicini, hired to kidnap the princess in order to start a war with the neighboring country of Gilder. And their own stories, Inigo's desire for revenge against his father's murderer, and Fezzik's desire to be accepted despite being a giant, eventually play out as well.
I think both Wesley and Buttercup, portrayed by Cary Elwes and Robin Wright respectively, have a bit more personality in the movie. Wesley's a little more confident and strong, the sort of person I could believe as a feared pirate captain. And Buttercup has a bit more grit and intelligence. I also buy the love between them more than I did in the book. It seems like it develops beyond more than just the adolescent infatuation that we see at the beginning of the story. And I realize that their love is supposed to be kind of unrealistic, but in the movie I could actually believe that they were in love with each other. In the book I just had to take the author's word for it that their love was the elusive true love.
Fezzik and Inigo, however, are a different story. In the movie, Fezzik is portrayed by Andre the Giant, who was literally the only person who could play that part, being the only English-speaking giant in the world at that time. As such, the part was written specifically for him, but I think they didn't want to overtax him, so they didn't give him quite as much to do in the movie. He's still a great character and all, but he's more interesting in the book. He gets just as much backstory as Inigo, and he has his own fears and problems to overcome. As for Inigo, well, honestly could go either way. I love the description and the detailed backstory from the book, but I also really like Mandy Patinkin's portrayal in the movie.
I am not offended.
But what decides this category for me is the relationships that develop between the characters. Not just the romance between Wesley and Buttercup, but also the friendship between Inigo and Fezzik, and the partnership that develops between Wesley and the other two. In that regard, the movie far surpasses the book. The book just didn't focus on developing the relationships as much, and in the end, I felt like they barely knew each other. Which, I guess in reality they did, but it didn't feel that way in the movie. I especially love the friendship and mutual respect that develops between Wesley and Inigo. And it all feels very natural, not forced at all. I felt like I was watching the adventures of a team rather than four separate characters. And for that reason, the movie characters were the ones that I felt more drawn to. But what about the flip side, the evil men who fought against our heroes?
We have three main bad guys here. We'll start with Vicini, the Sicilian hunchback who Inigo and Fezzik are working for at the beginning of the story. Vicini is a criminal mastermind hired to get Florin into a much-desired war with Gilder. The Vicini of the book is very intelligent and knows it, and he uses his intelligence to its fullest advantage, both with his schemes but also with his powers of persuasion. This is how he gets Inigo and Fezzik to work for him in the first place, and his intelligence can also be very threatening at times. I don't get this quite as much from the movie character. He's still very intelligent, and he definitely knows it, but the Vicini in the movie is definitely played up more for laughs, particularly with Wallace Shawn playing the part. And don't get me wrong, the character is hilarious, but in the book he's a lot more interesting.
Count Rugen, the prince's right-hand man, is a student of pain. He's quite fascinated by the concept and uses his torture methods to study the subject further. It's also for this reason that he builds the machine, which sucks life away. This is also the man that killed Inigo's father. In both cases, the character is very calm and cool, showing little to no emotion even when he's doing the most diabolically evil things. I like both versions of the character, but I really love watching Christopher Guest play this part. He's so emotionless about the pain that he's inflicting that it's just incredibly fun to watch.
How do you feel? Interesting.
And finally, the main bad guy himself, Prince Humperdinck, heir to the Florinese throne, Buttercup's betrothed, and a slimy git to boot. Just like Vicini, however, the movie character is played up more for laughs, while the book character is a little more interesting. In the movie, you know from the minute he walks on screen that this is the bad guy. But in the book, there are actually some moments where you start to think that maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. At which point he'll say or do something so diabolically evil that you'll have no choice but to hate him again. They also play up his love of hunting a little bit more, giving him the Zoo of Death, which is basically the Pit of Despair from the movie, but with added levels with animals that he can hunt. And we actually see quite a few strengths. We see that he's very competent in hunting and tracking, and even being a monarch and running a country. But we also see even more strongly just how much of a coward he is, only fighting that which is weaker than he is. Overall, the villains of the movie were comic ones, and the villains of the book had their funny moments, but they were also a lot more interesting to read about.